Okay, so I don't know. Hopefully technology is working well. I'm setting everything up over here on my end to go live. So hopefully the right link is up, and we'll just wait until people enter. So I got my moderator comments on. Okay, so in today's video, the whole plan is to just sit down and have like a real-time live chat with you, answer any behavior questions that you may have, any teaching questions, anything along those lines. I'm gonna go ahead and try to stream, like send out this link so that other people can see this. Okay, I see we have some other people who've gone ahead and entered. So feel free, you can go ahead in the question box below, just submit any questions and I will go ahead and answer them. So I'm new with this whole going live thing, so be patient with me. I also just finished doing ESY summer school today, so I'm a little tired. I have been up since 5 a.m. and it was kind of an interesting day. Our honeymoon period wore off in one day. So we were to real life. We were also down a staff member today, so I'm tired. But I'm definitely excited to answer your questions. I've been really looking forward to this all day. So feel free if you have any questions that you want to ask me about teaching, behavior, parenting. I would love to answer them. Go ahead and put them in the chat. I have my computer up over here, so I'm kind of monitoring. So if you see me kind of going back and forth, that is what I'm doing, just reading through your questions. But it is definitely interesting doing summer school because I am working with younger kids. I normally am working with junior high, as many of you know, but I'm working with elementary school right now. So we have a whole wide range of ability levels that we're working with. And I've been really busy this summer. So there's not a lot of like rest. I've been working on things on my TPT store. I actually just loaded like a teacher planner, just a generic teacher planner for next school year. It's in a boho theme, super cute. I'm also working on just an IEP special education ESC teacher type of planner that is more geared towards IEPs and working in small groups. And I'm making several copies of that. The one that I'm working on right now is more masculine in terms of how it looks. I know a lot of the planners that are out there are super duper feminine, and I know that's not what everybody is looking for. So I wanted to put together some more like gender neutral, some more masculine looking different options for the planners. So I will link that all below to my TPT store. You can go ahead and check all of that stuff out if that is something you're interested in. But I'm selling them for $10, so a lot cheaper than what you may see otherwise. I don't see any of your questions down there. Hopefully people are trying to put questions in. I think I have it set in there for questions. I see people popping in and viewing, but yeah, those are the things that I'm working on this summer. And then, of course, like I said, with the students that I'm working with, I have third grade through fifth grade, and it's more behavior focused. They're working on academic goals, but we are also working on behavior goals and just keeping them on the routine of school. So I have students that are on standards, and then I have students that are not on standards. So they'll be working on like an alternative certificate diploma route. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, and it makes it really interesting. I've been a little bit stressed because it's different from what I've been doing with the junior high age kids. So that's because they're a little bit more independent. And I've worked with younger children for a very long time, but getting back into the groove of working with children that aren't as independent is definitely a learning curve. So I'm going to put something in the chat again. Hopefully y'all can see it. So I have some new videos coming up that I'm also working on. In fact, after I'm done here with you all today, I will be finishing up filming my present levels video for the IEP step by step. So my plan is to take you on with a screen recording. I have developed a complete template of like the IEPs. I tried to make it the most like the ones that I've used. I know that sometimes they all look different. There's not really a universal format, but the one that I have created is very similar to the one that I used in Indiana, Mississippi, Virginia, and here in Florida. So hopefully it'll look most like what new special education teachers would be seeing. And that way you can go ahead and kind of follow step by step how I write IEPs, where I get my information from, and that sort of thing. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you, especially if you're a new teacher or you're a new special education ESE teacher and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed on writing those IEPs. I know that that was the most intimidating thing for me when I was a brand new teacher, was doing that. So hopefully that won't be as overwhelming for you if you have something to reference back. I would have loved to have had a video to reference, and I had nothing like that. I had like a binder full of just examples. And I don't know, I think for me, watching someone, listening to someone talk about it, being able to pause, go back, rewatch, I think would have been really helpful for me. So hopefully that would be helpful for you. I'm going to go ahead and try to share this link out onto some of the other social media so that maybe hopefully we can get a few more viewers in here, because I know I had to change the link up from what I originally had. So hopefully that will help a little bit, because I really want to get your questions in here. So I wonder what you guys are up to this summer. Oh, yay! How was my day at school for you? Oh, how was the school year for you? So my school year this year was actually really, really good. Last year was really tough, and I think that was because we had just moved. My husband is in the military, and we had just moved over from Mississippi to Florida. So I had packed up a house. Like, we had a whole bunch of stuff that fell through on that. I packed up a house, and then we moved over here, had a whole bunch of hiccups, and unpacked, and then literally got the keys to my classroom and had to go in there and start setting up in there. And the poor teacher that I came in afterwards was still moving her stuff out. So like, it was kind of chaotic, and some of my stuff was in Mississippi and some was there. So I started off the year kind of in a crazy place. Plus, I had never taught that grade level before, but this year has been really, really good. I really like junior high. I really like being a behavior coach. It is different from what I was doing before. So definitely really enjoyed that this year. I'm excited to be doing that again next year. We still have some changes on the horizon, but overall, I was really happy. I think it was a good year. I think if it hadn't been a good year, I don't think I could do summer school. So I would not be refreshed, but I am refreshed. So thank you. So do you have any questions for me? Anything teacher related, anything personal related in terms of, um, I mean, I just talked earlier about some of the things that I've been working on for the summer. I've been putting together some things. I've been working hard on my TPT store. Spent a lot of time making a teacher planner, several teacher planners that I'm listing on there. I kind of neglected my store. In fact, I don't even know if all my links were working, but I'm back in there again, really trying to get some stuff in there so that it can help teachers. So my position is a little bit different from how I was teaching before. So I was a self-contained teacher in a behavior unit. They call it VE, varying exceptionality. So that meant that I had students with developmental disabilities, autism, behavior, emotional behavior disabilities, all in one setting. I had grades K through 2, and that's what I was doing before I became a behavior coach. So essentially, what I do now is a lot different. I am there to support the teachers, offer behavior strategies, offer breaks for the students. I do a lot of talking to parents and helping the parents with some different stuff too. So, yes, yeah. But I don't know. I think it was, like I said, I think it was a pretty good year. I really love what I'm doing. I love that I can focus a lot on the students and supporting teachers this year and supporting parents. I think it was a little overwhelming last year because I was managing parents and I was managing like paraprofessionals and I was managing students and all of the curriculum for 3 different grade levels and then talking to the parents and then working with other behavior coaches and working with BCBAs, and that's kind of overwhelmed. Um, so it's really nice to focus on the behavior piece, and I love being like a resource for my teachers too, so that I can take some of the work off of their plates so that they can teach. So if they have a kid who's like really struggling, they don't have to stop everything that they're doing. I can come in and help work with that child and they can continue teaching, which I think is the best thing about my job, being able to support them. And I'm really grateful because I'm able to do that a lot. I have just the right amount of students and staff that I can go in and really do my job to the fullest, which I really appreciate. So I know some people had I see more questions. Okay. This will be my first time teaching a special education teacher in Mississippi. I'm nervous about writing presenting IEPs to parents. Okay, can you provide me some tips? So, my advice to you, of course, is to work on the IEPs ahead of time. Make sure that you pace yourself right. Get your data together. I don't know where you're going to be teaching in Mississippi, but you usually have county-wide assessments. We did iReady when I was in Mississippi, and you can use a lot of data from that. I also pulled students aside and did baseline with them. I'm going to be doing more in-depth videos on it, but if you work on it ahead of time and you just make sure you have your IEP written, when you get into the meeting and you present to the parents, there's nothing to be nervous about. What I did when I first started teaching is I literally just used the IEP as my agenda, my outline, and I just went through each one. Now it's really boring. I'm a parent. It's really boring to be on the other end of an IEP meeting or sit in one where someone just reads straight from it. If you give the draft home early to the parents, which you should, you can talk about it more and use it more as talking points. But that's what I recommend to you, is just kind of stick to that, what you have written, and that'll alleviate a lot of the nerves. I always want to start with something positive when I go in there and talk about all the great things about the child to the parent and let them know that I love and care for their kid. And then we talk about the needs that the child has, because and I try to address them as needs. I don't want it to be bad or negative. It's just that's the whole reason we have an IEP. In fact, that's one of the things I tell other parents is like, right now we're going to get into the reason that we have the IEP, what your student needs help with, and that's what we're going to address. And then we're going to talk about the goals that are coming from that and how we can help your child reach those goals. And that's really how I present it. And then I always try to end on something positive as well. I think keeping the meeting positive, don't sugarcoat stuff. I mean, if the child is having a lot of outbursts, maybe behaviorally, maybe some aggressive behaviors, you do need to talk about it. It needs to be addressed, but talk about it objectively, not in a way that's like a personal attack. Just let them know, on April 15th, little Johnny, had 5 outbursts. They were 30 minutes long. They resulted in, kicking or spinning or whatever, and just let them know. But then we saw a decrease when we implemented these interventions, or, we tried these interventions and they haven't worked and we're proposing getting outside help or whatever you're going on. But as a parent who has a child with an IEP, I appreciate when they speak to me just professionally and, really try to keep it positive. But that's the biggest thing. And use the other teachers, paras, specialists that you work with. Make sure you get their input for that IEP before the meeting. I like to send out a Google form to them and just asking what the student's strengths are, their needs, that sort of thing. Oh, you're very welcome. Yes, I had an IEP as well. And like I said, so does my child. So I've sat at all parts of the table in an IEP meeting. I've sat as the teacher. I'm now sitting as a specialist, as a parent, and as a student. So I can tell you overwhelmingly that keeping it positive, keeping it just the facts is the most important. Really follow your IEP as your agenda. Try not to deviate from that. That'll also keep you on schedule. A lot of times you get in IEP meetings, you'll get a lot of people who want to talk a lot, and it can derail things and you can get off topic, just like you can in the classroom. And when things are going in a different direction, you go, okay, well, I want to make sure that we keep our meeting to, 30 minutes or 45 minutes we have allotted. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the accommodations now. That's what's really helpful when you have that in front of them. And then everybody can kind of be redirected back to where they need to be again. But I do have a video coming up. In fact, that's what I'm filming when I get out of here, and I'm talking about all the IEP stuff. We're breaking it down. So that should help you. That'll be coming within the next 2 weeks. You should be able to see that video. And I'm going to break that into a series so it's not too overwhelming. That way, if you're watching it and working on paperwork, you can kind of bounce back and forth. But like I said, when I send out a questionnaire, and I'll show you guys in the video the kind of questionnaire that I send out, I ask all the questions in the Google form just like you'd see them in the IEP. So the students' present levels, where are they on Achieve? Where are they on iReady? Where are they on compared to their grade level peers? Where are they? And then I just move through each part. What are their strengths? Where are their needs? What are their concerns? I ask the teachers generally if there's anything that they think that they might need as a goal, like behaviorally or for, day-to-day functioning. Doesn't mean that I'm going to take that, but we take that in consideration. And like I said, having the draft done and to the parents a week before, 10 days before is really helpful, because that way you can send that out to all the parties that are on the IEP team. And if anybody sees anything, has questions, concerns, you can address it beforehand. I always like to call my parents before I write my IEPs too, and do like an interview with them and talk about what their concerns are too. That really helps. It's kind of like a pre-meeting before the meeting, and it makes things go a lot smoother. So. Any other questions? Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that I became, well, I know that's one of the reasons that I became a teacher because I hated school. I wasn't like a behavior problem, I just was always sick. I had a lot of somatic responses, and I think not all of it was made up. I think school really did cause me to have like stomach aches, headaches, because it was from anxiety because I struggled so much. So yeah, that's one of the big reasons I became a teacher is I don't want kids to feel like school is miserable. I mean, some school's hard. It's going to require work. We can't play 24/7, and I do tell them that, but I try to make it as fun as we possibly can. That's what I've been telling the kids during summer schools. I'm like, summer school's supposed to be fun, guys. So you do this, you do the little things that we have you in there to do. We're going to go out and play. We're going to do fun stuff. I love summer school because it's almost like it's the way that I wish I could always teach school. But I mean, we have so many things that we have to hit, but the classes are so small. The kids get so much individual support, and you really do blow through a lot of the academic stuff pretty quickly because you're in such a small group and the kids can get what they need. And we get through stuff pretty quickly. And so we can move into a lot of fun things. Our plan is to do some cooking because we're in a room that has a kitchen, and I want to do some cooking with the kids and incorporate the reading and the math with that as well. So we did some of that today. We also, have animals. So we're going to be reading some stories about some chickens, and then we're going to go out and see chickens in real life. And, we have some plans to do like squirt guns with sight words and math problems, and not really sight words, more like sounds, because we're working on some reading. Don't really want to do a lot of sight words, but we have some students working on like letter recognition, and it's fun to find the matching letter and then squirt it with the squirt gun. It's just a little bit more exciting than doing it on a worksheet in the room because it's summer. It should be fun. But yeah, changing your mindset that school's not a dungeon, I think, is a big thing. I always tell my own child that. So I always tell her that school, if you look at it as like you try to find the good in what you're doing, it really does. I try to do that every day because sometimes teaching, and especially teaching with students that sometimes have a lot of behaviors, you have to sit there and think about the positive things to get through and focus on the good things that happen for the day. I always try to look for at least one good thing that happened for the day. And I think we had a good day today. So I had a student who's nonverbal, and we did a lot of stuff with that. Okay, anxiety. Always been. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of like neurodivergent children need that. Non-neurodivergent students need that. That's why I try to do that in my classroom. We have a lot of flexibility. If you would rather do your work in the beanbag chair, go do your work in the beanbag chair. If you want it with headphones, that's fine. If we didn't want to do vocabulary, but you want to do the reading passage instead, as long as we're doing what we need to do within the parameters, that's okay. I think that they need that flexibility. Sometimes you're just not in the headspace yet to do the vocabulary sheet, but you are in the headspace to be able to read the story or something along those lines. I think a lot of them need that. I know my child's actually away at camp right now, and I was talking to my child about that because they were having a harder time being around all the different people because we have a really quiet house and it was so much noise. And a lot of people forget that the sensory issues and sensitivities. And school can be very overstimulating for neurodiverse students, for sure. So I try my best to give them a lot of flexibility and freedom and try to keep the space as calm as we possibly can so that it's not stressful. So I'm hoping next week, we had a student who wasn't with us for summer school for the first week, so we'll have all of them next week. And I'm really hoping that we can do some really fun stuff. My daughter actually had a really amazing first grade teacher. She they were learning about Egypt, and they had this teacher VR program that she had gotten where they used, it was kid friendly, family friendly, school approved, of course. Assassin's Creed like virtual tour, kind of like the same graphics as Assassin's Creed. It was made for schools, and they could go in and like explore the inside of the pyramids and stuff. And I thought that was so cool that she had tapped into something that was something that all the students were really interested in with the video games, and added the educational component and made it interactive and just more exciting, because they had been reading, they had done all sorts of things to learn about the pyramids. They read the stories, they drew the pictures, they made the dioramas, and then they did the VR. And I just thought that was really cool. And just another way to add more freedom to the learning environment for students. So, oh, so I have a TPT store. I'm still working on it. I had neglected it. I started it back in 2020, and then we moved, and last year was just a year where I was trying to get my bearings. So I've been hitting that pretty hard. So I will link below in my description my Teachers Pay Teachers. I was actually working on some of it last night and updating some things. I realized some of the links weren't like up to par where they need to be. So if you don't see everything in there just yet, give it about another week. I'm putting things in there, making sure that everything is linked and up to date. I had to refresh some of my resources, but I do have an IEP binder in there. If for some reason things aren't working the way they're supposed to, please let me know. But it looks like they are. So I have an IEP data binder that's in there. I'm going to be linking my Excel, my Google Sheets that I use for digital data collection. That's coming up. I just put in just a teacher planner last night, and then I'm adding a teacher IEP planner. And I said earlier that I'm making some of those more like spread out in terms of gender because most of them have been like really female specific, but I know I work with a lot of male teachers at the secondary level, so I'm trying to make different designs for them as well, so they aren't so female focused, but that it has in there for you to put your IEPs, when your dates are. You can list your student accommodations, all of that stuff, and making it more of a planner that is set up for the small groups. Yes, and I think tailoring your instruction to what the kids like is very, very helpful, especially with neurodivergent students, autism, ADHD, because if you can tap into their specific focus, that is definitely the way to motivate them. Especially if you can get them on their special interest, you'll have them. You'll have the motivation. So yeah, back with my resources that are on there. I'm adding more. My labels that I use for my school store, updating those sorts of things. I have some first then boards. I'm going to be adding some more visuals in there. And if there's anything in particular that you're looking for, I do make a lot of stuff. So you can always just shoot me an email and see if I can come together something specific that you might need for your classroom. But I think the big thing, and I'm working on that, getting it all set up, is my digital sheets, my digital graphs for behavior data collection, all those sorts of things, because it makes life a lot easier in admin. Absolutely love them. So that's always good too. I like having a graph when I go into an IEP meeting when we're talking about student progress. I like to send those graphs home because I think it's a lot easier for a parent. I mean, you can write in there and say that, Billy has achieved this 7 out of 5 times, but what does that look like? I think seeing the actual visual representation of whether it's going up or going down, how the dates correlate, I think holds a lot more meaning to parents. I also like having students graph their own information or being able to see the graphs, because I think that also helps with their buy-in and keeping them, they need to see where they're at and the progress they're making. I think that's really important for them. And with the little kids, you could actually have them color in the graph. But with our junior high kids, we give them access. They can go in and look at their graphs anytime they want to see their data. we pull it up and show them their data. Next year, my plan is to actually give them access so they can pull it up anytime they want to. I just want to make sure that they only have viewer access because I don't want them going in and manipulating things. So still kind of working on some of the bugaboos on that one, but that'll definitely be up and available. But also in my IEP binder, I have an IEP at a glance, which is really good if you're doing inclusion or for your teachers, for your students that maybe mainstream out into inclusion classes. And the teachers maybe are a little overwhelmed about the whole IEP. They can see an IEP at a glance. I give IEPs at a glance out to the gen ed teachers, to the specials teachers like electives, PE, art, all that. I've even given them to bus drivers, especially if a child on a behavior plan or a child who's nonverbal. I think it's really important for them to understand the student's disability. And you can either, those are editable, so you can either type them in or you can write them out by hand, whatever's easiest for you. I know some people like to the editable so they can copy and paste, but then some people just like to write it out by hand, but you can print it out and do whatever you want because it is in a Google slide. So I have certain things fixed in there except for the part where you can edit yourself. And that's always been a pretty big hit. I've shared some of that with my colleagues and they really like those. But I know that the gen ed teachers appreciate the IEPs at a glance. I mean, I keep them in my own folder just because if I have to reference something, if you have 30 kids in your caseload, yeah. Yes, if you go on to my, if you go back and look at my channel, I have some videos on setting up my classroom. And they're just kind of like me doing some of the prep in the rooms. But yeah, and I'd be happy to sit down with you too if we ever want to just get on like Instagram Live or chat together and you want to show me some stuff, I can give you some ideas. I always make sure that I have a calm space for kids. The biggest thing when you're working with neurodivergent students is making sure you have lots of designated work areas where they can go work and it's kind of quiet. Making sure that you have like the noise canceling headphones, that you have them, you can put them in places where they're not distracted, and it gives you easy accessibility throughout the room to go work with the kids. I don't know if you're going to be having assistants or not that help you, or how that's going to look because it kind of just varies on each situation. I think the biggest thing now with technology, when I first started teaching, we set everything up with, I kind of did binders for each kid and I put work binders together, but you can even do it now with like a Google Classroom and put stuff in the Google Classroom and it'll automatically grade it. But I don't like to lean 100% on technology because our kids tend to just click buttons and they don't really put forth their best effort. I think when you're assessing a kid to see if they're making progress, you need to actually physically do it with them. But I would put my laptop next to me and I just pull up their data sheet and then we'd work on their goal and then I'd go ahead and just, put in how many they got right. Like I keep saying, like let's say like math facts or whatever. I could put in how many they got on their worksheet that they did and just type it into the computer. I like to save some of my stuff too as work samples in case anybody needs to see it and see what the kid is working on. So my advice to you is to set up a binder on each individual kid. I would put the IEP in a glance. I'd also put in a sheet that had all their goals and their benchmarks. And then I'd just start pulling like probes or prompts. You can get a lot of free resources off the internet. I know that ReadWorks is a great free resource for teachers. Probably whatever curriculum you have. I know iReady has a lot of fluency practice sheets that you can use as well. Just off the top of my head that you can print out. If you use Lexia or Lexia Core Power Up, they also have printable stuff and you can put all of that in their binder and then you just set that out for them to work on, set up things as practice that you teach them the skill. And then I tended to probe my students once or twice a week. Sometimes more if you have a kid who doesn't show up very often, just so you make sure you have your data points. But once a week is usually a general rule of thumb. That way you can teach them the skill at the beginning of the week and then maybe probe them on Friday to see how they did and then maybe go back and just kind of see if they're maintaining the skill. That's the other thing too, because sometimes our kids have issues with retention and you may have taught them that and you need to go back and make sure that they retained it before you move on to something else. But the individual binders is probably the easiest thing to start with. And then you can kind of go from there and you can branch out into doing more digital things if you want to. Yeah, it's hard to, with all of the media right now, keeping kids entertained is really, really difficult. Um, Classroom is just not as stimulating in terms of keeping them engaged as it once was because they have instant gratification and from being on their phones and stuff. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. If you go back into some of my old videos, you can see what my data binders look like. So I have some stuff in there. And then, like I said, I can show you some more things that I have around. I can show you the work bins right now. I can put that in one of my other upcoming videos, the work bins that I have right now for my students that I'm doing for ESY. So that might give you an example. What grade level are you going to be teaching next year? Because that'll dictate a lot on how you set up your classroom. Because with older kids, you may not need to have work bins. A lot of them you can work primarily with like workbooks and worksheets and computer-based stuff. Whereas like the littles, you're gonna need more manipulatives. Yeah, well, I think honestly because I went through it and I struggled myself, I really try to go out of my way to help the kids. I also, like I said, having a child with an IEP, I try to look at every student like they're my own kid and what I would want their teachers to do for them. And plus, I've got to be there too. I don't want it to be boring. I'm neurodivergent myself. I can't sit there and do boring day in and day out. I'll lose my mind. So we have to have fun. So first and second. Okay, so first and second, yeah. If you look at my videos from last year and you see kind of how I set up my behavior classroom, that could be really helpful. And you're doing inclusion, so you're going to be pushing into a room with a teacher. Because if you're pushing in, you're going to be doing like probably more of a co-teaching model with them. And so hopefully they'll have a space set up for you in the classroom. And if you do the binders, you can bring those with you. Yes. Okay. So what might really help you is doing some of your stuff, like tracking your data digitally. So once I put those up there in my TPT store and I show you how I track everything in Google Sheets, I would, if you have access to a laptop, if they let you do that. If not, you can even still do it like on your phone or on a tablet. But, or if you just write it down in a notebook and put it in afterwards, whatever's easiest for you. But I would do that. And I just bring that stuff in with you. Make sure teachers are usually pretty good about giving you your own space to kind of set everything up. With inclusion, you don't generally have a lot of prep work. You're just going to want to get together the probes and make folders or binders for the kids and just keep them in the room and pull from that, because most of the time you're going to be helping them get through their classwork, or you'll be teaching them some of the stuff on their goals if you split up into groups. So when I co-taught, the teacher usually taught the whole class something, and then we'd split up into groups, different centers, and I would usually teach not just my students that were on my caseload, but other students, and we would work on whatever skills they were missing. And then usually on like Thursdays or Fridays, I would progress monitor my students based on their IEP goals with my data binder. Then I'd also give the accommodations for my students. A lot of times, the only times they really came back to my room, unless they had specifically written in their IEP for minutes, is when they were taking a test. So that's where I would do read alouds and that kind of stuff with them. But most of everything I did was in the actual gen ed classroom, so you may not really need that much. I would just have like a calming space, because you may have students that get overstimulated and need a quiet place to work. I keep a lot of snacks on hand. I would say that 90% of my behaviors results because someone is hungry, and they haven't realized they're hungry yet, or they're tired. So, especially when I had elementary school, I could solve a lot of our problems with a drink and a little snack, and then usually we could get right to work. And that helped a lot. So, one thing I would do if people are trying to get things for you to help support you in your classroom, I know sometimes when you're a new teacher, your family will do that, or the community will do that, is I would just keep snacks on hand. Now, you may want to, before you purchase the snacks, you may want to do like a reinforcement survey with the students once you get them. Find out what they like, what motivates them. That way, you can use that as an incentive. You don't want to get motivators that they could care less about. I mean, with first and second grade, you're so lucky because it's cheap. They're happy with little tiny trinkets and stickers and stamps. You get to junior high, like I have, they eat all the time and they want expensive stuff. So it makes it harder. Like I'm gonna have to. That's another reason I'm starting my TPT store back up again. Is because the money I make from that is going back into our school store and to our parties because it just takes so much. Like I get money from my district and they're generous and they're kind, but it's a lot for the older kids. They just want expensive things. I think that's how we all are, and they eat more than little kids do. So you like a box of granola bars when I had elementary school, one of those big boxes from Walmart, that would last me a month. It won't get you very far with junior high kids because a lot of the junior high kids, they don't wake up until the last moment, so they never get breakfast, and then they come in and they're hungry. So it's just how it always is. I'd also keep some fidgets available. Fidgets that I would avoid are fidget spinners. Those are distracting. I've yet to find a student who uses a fidget spinner appropriately. Also, those little plastic things that you can pull out and push back, those are really loud. I would stick to like stress balls. Kinetic sand has been a game changer. I had one kid that he would get really anxious when he'd read, but he put his hand in the kinetic sand and kind of just play with it in one hand and then read, and it was really calming to him. That was one that's really popular. I know a lot of them like Rubik's cubes, some of those little brain teasers, those erasable drawing boards. I have a bunch. If you watch some of my other videos, you can see some of the fidgets that are in there. They're also linked in my Amazon storefront. Some of my favorite fidgets. I like the hand tangle fidget, but I would avoid the fidget spinners because they just don't work very well. There's other options, and you don't want the gen ed teachers to get annoyed with you that you gave the child something that's a huge distraction. One thing too, I always teach in the beginning, at the beginning of school, and I even make visuals for it, is how to handle using a fidget. You know, a fidget is a tool, a fidget is not a toy. I even model how we use the fidgets, and like I'll show them how I'm talking to them and I'm playing with a fidget, but I'm still able to talk. I'm still able to do my job. It's not distracting me. That's how you are to use a fidget. And I think that's really important to make sure that you actually model that for them so they know, because they don't know what they don't know. And we sometimes as adults with life experience and a fully developed brain think that they just know that, and they don't. So they have to be explicitly taught how to use fidgets. Same with flexible seating if you do any flexible seating in your room. So if you do have bean bags in there, you're going to need to set like parameters. How did they get to use the bean bags? You know, what do you do if like 4 kids all want to use the bean bag at the same time? What kind of system do you have in place for it? So you could even just draw like popsicle sticks out of a jar and then set a 5-minute timer. I would do something along those lines. And then do the same thing. Keep it very predictable so they already know, so you don't have to have the same argument and debate. One of the mistakes I made as a new teacher, and I had flexible seating in my room, and the kids would come into my room to work on stuff, and then they'd run in and all fight over chairs. Yes. Yeah, behavior definitely comes from tired, haven't woken up yet, school starts really, really early. Anxiety from being challenged. Yeah, be nailed down public. I try not to redirect children publicly ever. I don't think that that's a good idea. I try to do it privately. Um, Sometimes you have little nosy rosies in the corner who want to jump in there in somebody else's business. So if you have an assistant in the room, I try to pull them out and talk to them, or just set up a time to talk to them separate. But yeah, it's school just brings out a lot of anxiety, especially if you're not good at it. Nobody wants to do things they aren't good at. I don't think I would appreciate. I'm a horrible dancer. I'm very, very clumsy, and I think I'd have a lot of anxiety in a dance class. So I understand that and why that would make it hard. And it is hard to separate, especially when they come off of summer break. A lot of them, every family is different. I keep my home extremely structured in terms of, when my kids go to bed, how, expectations of what they're supposed to do before they get on technology. But not every home is that way. So you might have to like ease them into it. And don't be afraid to don't be afraid to let them do some of that sort of stuff. As long as they learn that the expectation is you're going to give them a little bit of time. Like cell phones is a big deal with junior high kids. I found that I use the argument of, you give me 15 minutes, I teach, you put it up, you get your stuff done, then you have your time to use it, so that they know it's not a feast or famine situation, and they know to expect that they're going to get that. That alleviates a lot of that anxiety, because some of them really do have some serious separation anxiety from their phones. And I get that. I like my phone too, but it's even different because they've been on them since the beginning of time. They don't really know how to entertain themselves like we do with some of the older generation who didn't have that tech. Yes. We're getting up to 50 minutes. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions or anything else they want to add. Yes, teach them what's up. Teach them a lot. I mean, I think we, as teachers, we think we have to do the reading, writing, arithmetic stuff, but a lot of it is just, social stuff and how to navigate the world, because not everybody learns that from home. Yes, they don't. They don't learn it from home. I really think having parents who teach you that is the new privilege. And not everybody has that, because maybe their parents never even learned that. And a lot of people just think yelling and screaming is how you handle kids that don't listen, but you're not actually teaching them the skill. And sometimes some homes, that's how they operate. So they don't know what to expect. All right, so I'm going to end our live. If you all let me know if you enjoyed this, we can do this again sometime. I'll bring some resources on too and share with you if you want that as well. Maybe any other questions? All right. I'm going to try to end this. This has been a learning curve. I think my next live will be better because I'll know more what to do. I was so caught up in the technology and trying to do it correctly. So next time we do this, make it better. Okay. Yes, for sure. So, yep, tailor to their interest. I think that's my biggest behavior strategy to everybody. You can figure out what a kid likes, you're golden. You're golden. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thank you so much for attending. And then, of course, this will be up to watch again. You can share it out to anybody if they might be interested. And then, of course, let me know if you enjoyed this and if this is something we want to do again. All right. I liked it. I enjoyed talking to you all in real time. So thank you so much. Have a great day. And I'll put all those links below after the show as well, so you can go in and check out my TPT store and some of my other stuff that I mentioned. All right. Have a great day. Oh, you're so welcome. All right, I'm going to try to end this. I don't know. I don't know. It's ending. Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. It was really easy to get started, but ending it is definitely a lot harder. There's not like an actual. All right, well, we'll just try this. I'll see you later.